So for me, greater He has for me. No more chains holding me down. Now that I've been found, yeah, there's more in store for me. More in store for me. Greater He has for me. No more chains holding me down. Now that I've been found, it is my time to break free. Wanna break free. No more chains holding me. Wanna break free. Glory to glory, glory to glory. Lord, you are taking me. Lord, you are taking me. My hands are reaching, my hands are reaching. You, Lord, carry me. Lord, carry me. Glory to glory, glory to glory. Lord, you are taking me. Lord, you are taking me. My hands are reaching, my hands are reaching. For you, Lord, carry me. There's more in store for me. Greater He has for me. No more chains holding me down. Now that I've been found, yeah, there's more in store for me. Greater He has for me. No more chains holding me down. Now that I've been found, it is my time to break free. Calling me high and me close into a place I never wanna go deeper than you. Lord, take me deeper into my destiny. It's my desire to go with you and behold the beauty of your face. I'm moving forward, moving ahead. There's more for me. Yeah. There's more in store for me. Greater He has for me. No more chains holding me down. Now that I've been found. Yeah, I wanna break free, break free. I wanna break free, break free. I wanna break free, break free. Say oh, say oh, I wanna break free, break free. I wanna break free, break free. No more chains binding me. To your spirit, you will be free. Oh, spirit of suicide, break free. Spirit of depression, break free. Spirit of oppression, break free. No self-esteem, no confidence. You will be free, break free.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Birmingham Bible Church Worldwide. This is our Winning Wednesday, and you have just heard a song by Valerie Giles Smith. This is one of her older songs on her older album, but it's called Break Free. And what a befitting song! Just listening to the words to that song just really reminds you of how God has more in store for you. But in order for us to get it, we have to break free from things that are, she mentioned, poverty and depression and even stress. That's what we're talking about on today. And so, what a befitting song. God wants us to live a stress free life. And so, welcome everyone, those of you who are watching on Facebook, on YouTube, also on Twitter, through our church's website, bhambc.org, or through the My Sunday app. However you're watching us, thank you for joining us. We are here every Wednesday at 12 noon Central Standard Time, and we have powerful information that is brought to you by powerful people that is for your life and for your living. And so listen, make sure you share this broadcast. Make sure you text somebody. Make sure you tell somebody of just the great information that is going down today and also on every Wednesday. And so this is what we love to do. We love to inspire you, to educate you, and to motivate you. And so we have a great topic on today. And of course, it is about stress. And I think, when I was looking at this topic and just kind of getting ready for it, I said, I think everyone feels stressed from time to time. We have children, our youth may feel stressed, singles, y'all feel stressed. Parents feel stressed, senior citizens may feel stressed. And, a lot of times different things cause us to stress out. This whole month, we've been talking about money. It's also a financial literacy month. And so we had people talking about investing and budgeting, and you probably looking at your finances like, I'm getting a little stressed right now, just looking at, what I have going in and coming out. But, some stress is good. Some is good. It's kind of, helps us to perform our best, do better, motivate us, what have you. But we all know that all stress is not good, and too much of it can be bad for our health, emotionally and physically. And so this month, we are being challenged nationwide to keep our stress levels low and to keep our peace levels high. And so we could not do it. We couldn't do this discussion. When I thought about it, I said, I got to reach out to Valerie. Like, she's the only one I just know who can really do this, just do a great job with this. But she is world renowned. I'm going to speak that, world renowned, licensed professional counselor, about to be Dr. Wilson. And so can't wait for that. But of course, she's been on here before, but welcome to everyone, Valerie Wilson. Hello, Valerie.
Good morning, Lady Pam, and I received everything you just said. Oh my goodness. And I can tell that you have probably studied on this topic of stress yourself. That's exactly the direction that I want to take with it today, is being able to make a distinction between that good and bad stress. But first of all, I want to thank you and Pastor Mason for having me on, reaching out to me, allowing me the opportunity to talk about stress management. I think today, I'm sitting in we'll be speaking from a humbling place, because as I do minister this word, I'll be ministering to myself, because I've had my own personal experience even here recently with managing stress, to the point that my husband had to say, sit down, lay down. And, and I had to be obedient to that, because I knew that he was looking out for my good.
That's right.
And so he makes it very easy to submit. So I tend to do what he says, and he likewise, takes my encouragement, and so we work really well together. I want to even thank him, because he catch me in those moments where at night I might be tossing and turning with some of my thoughts, and he will. And I think I shared this before. He sometimes will create this do imagery work with me, or guided imagery work with me, where he's trying to paint this picture of relaxation to get my mind focused on being in a relaxed state, and so I can drift off to sleep. He prays over me when I'm in those type of mindsets, and so I'm thankful for him. And I'm thankful for a group of friends I have available to me who pray with me and support me. And then here recently, I have hired a person for my administrative assistant role. She's been of great assistance to take a lot of things off my plate. So I am actively trying to find ways to manage my stress. So I think that from that place, I am the person to talk about it. So thank you for allowing me to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint presentation. Forgive me.
So Valerie, hold on. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
But your husband's also working on his certification as well for counseling. Is that right? Nicholas working on.
He's actually finished his master's in psychology and currently counsels at a facility where he's helping with counseling at-risk youth. So that's what he does. Our goal is to have him be on full-time with us. And so that's something to be prayerful over, because we do find that we work really well together.
I can tell, because he was, I think you were one of his patients when you were talking about, he does this and does that. So he's practicing on her.
Exactly. And we do that. And we jokingly say, don't therapize me.
Right. That's awesome. We're going to have to get Nicholas on too. I didn't know.
Absolutely. He did. Yes, please do. Pull at him. He's, I think he would be a great fit, especially to speak to. He also counsels young men, adult men. And so he has community clients as well, not just at-risk youth. So he would be a great person to speak to that. So awesome. Well, just to get into it, you'll hear some of my anatomy teaching come out of this. I taught anatomy in the massage therapy program. And if some of you did not know, I'm also a licensed massage therapist. And so I tend to think about mental health in combination with how the body works and how the body functions. Oftentimes we may not be aware of how certain mental health issues may also manifest as physical issues or physical pain. So I tend to like to link those together. But as far as stress, what is it? It's often defined as a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation, and is actually a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges and threats in our lives. But just like Lady Pam was talking about, there's a distinction that can be made between good and bad stress. Bad stress might be a perceived or anticipated threat, whereas good stress will be a response to a real threat. And so I want you to kind of take a moment to imagine, like if you were in a close call to having a car accident, and, everything came into play, whether it was your body tensing or whether it was your heartbeat escalating, whether it was, your eyes widening. In those moments, stress is good because it helps you to avoid a situation that could be very impactful and to your health, to your physical body. But as far as bad stress, that might be you experiencing worry, staying up late at night, worrying about your adult children and what's going on for them, or worrying about things that are outside your control, worrying about things that are in the future, not even near or close to what you need to be focusing on in the present moment. Though that type of exposure to stress can cause or exacerbate mental health disorders. And so that's why I want to help you to make a distinction about the types of stress and how to manage that. So how does stress affect us? Stress affects both the mind and the body. A little bit of stress can be good and can help us to perform daily, but too much stress can cause physical and mental health problems. I want you to take for a moment, put some examples in here from scripture where Elijah was threatened. His life was threatened by Jezebel after the prophets of Baal was killed in 1 King chapter 19. Scripture says he was afraid and he fled. In that moment, he was really trying to escape a real threat. Judge his decision, good or bad. That's not what I'm dealing with. But he received a direct threat from Jezebel, and that's what he was attempting to flee from. Now, the body that's as if like you're being chased by a dog, like I said, or if you imagine being in a close call with a car accident or a perceived threat as you were, about to have a car accident. And so as he was getting away from Jezebel, if in fact he was able to experience some sense of calm once he created some distance between he and Jezebel, then I would say that his stress level, he probably managed his stress level well. But if he escaped Jezebel and he continued to worry and worry and worry, that now we're talking about him being exposed to long-term stress hormones. And when we're exposed to long-term stress hormones, that is what can create some problems for our mental health and our physical body. I want you to also think about King Saul, when he decided to disobey God in chapter 15 of 1 Samuel, and then God caused a tormenting spirit to come upon him that ultimately led to depression and fear for him in 1 Samuel chapter 16. There's a difference here between Elijah, who was escaping a real threat, and then Saul, who was really worried about the consequences of what his actions. So the consequences of his actions is what he was worried about. So Elijah's stress, in the sense that he was trying to get away from Jezebel, I would say, was a real threat, and it was probably healthy for him to get away and get some distance between them. But for King Saul, his exposure to stress and over a long period exacerbated a mental health disorder. So I just wanted to put that into context for you as we look at this. So when we consider what body, what systems in the body stress, tends to travel, I often point to the autonomic nervous system, which houses or is divided into two nervous system, which is sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. And so when the body is stressed, the sympathetic nervous system contribute to what is known as the fight or flight response. And that's when the body shifts its energy resources toward fighting off a life threat that is a real threat or fleeing from an enemy. And so the adrenal glands are responsible, which are just situated above the kidney. The adrenal glands are responsible for releasing hormones called adrenaline and cortisol. Now, what it does is it releases sugar energy for us to be able to have the amount of energy we need to get away from that threat. But if you're in a situation where you're worrying or where you're restless or you're under amount of stress when there's no real threat, that is when it can become very troubling for us. So when we don't use this energy that's released, it often is converted into sugar and stored in the body. And sometimes people wonder, why is it difficult for me to lose weight? I would think about evaluating or assessing with them, what has been your level of stress? So just remember, when the adrenal glands release these hormones, it's intended to help you to escape a real life threat or a situation. So, but if it's not used, then it's stored in the body. I kind of want you to look at the parasympathetic and I'm going to focus on the sympathetic nervous system and help you to understand what happens when we are in a near accident, when we are chased by a dog, when there's a real threat. The sympathetic nervous system is designed to function by dilating the pupils inhibiting salivation, relaxes the bronchi, increases heart rate, slows down digestion, stimulates glucose release. And when that glucose is released, if it's not used, it's converted into sugar stored in the body. Reduces intestinal muscles and adrenaline production. Now, all of these are designed to make sure, you're not stopping for a restroom break when you're trying to escape from a dog, right? Or stopping to eat. None of that is going to occur when you're in the fight or flight response mode. And then the parasympathetic functions. This is where we should be on a normal basis, and the parasympathetic nervous response, response factor. This sympathetic nervous system is only designed for those moments where you're faced with real threat. Now, positive and negative stress. And I'll tell you the difference between these two, but it is very common for all of us to experience stress, whether we're receiving a promotion or raise at work, and even starting or taking on new responsibilities on the job. And that has its stress. But as you become familiar with your new job and responsibilities, eventually that stress level is going to reduce, or at least it should. I have worked with people who take on new jobs and that stress level just does not come down. So we talk about considering whether that is the position for them and whether they need to start having conversations with their leaders in determining if there is another job or a set of responsibilities they can take on. Getting married can have its stress. Being married can have its level of stress. And buying a home, having a child, moving, holiday seasons, and taking academic courses all can be stressors. But those would be stressors that you can manage. You can create some different goals to, and you can work through that stress. But more long-term stress or negative stress can cause you to be exposed to those stress hormones over a long period of time. So conflict in interpersonal relationships, that's just ongoing. Bankruptcy or money problems, being unemployed, having poor sleep hygiene, or children having problems at school, legal problems, divorce, losing contact with loved ones, or the death of family members. These things can expose us to those stress hormones, and we probably need some support. So oftentimes when you find yourself dealing with these negative stressful situations, you want to make sure that you're reaching out for help, for support, whether that is a family member, a close friend, or what have you. It is so important not to try and navigate these things alone. And also, when you're dealing with money problems or unemployment, there are other, I know that Birmingham Bible Church offers financial courses or financial management teachings. And so it would be important to get your hands onto something like that if you're dealing with some financial issues. So some characteristics of the positive stress, just like Lady Pam was talking about, you should be able to make a distinction whether you're motivated and you're focusing your energy. It should be short term and perceived as, I often talk to my clients about, is your stress level manageable? Is it manageable? Meaning, do you have goals established around those things that are of importance or that you have prioritized? Is it taking up, do you feel like you can manage your time while taking care of these things? I look for information like that so that I can understand how they're managing the stress. Now, if they come in and they tell me they're dealing with something that is interrupting their sleep, their eating habits, those things can be concerning. If it is consuming a lot of their thought space, I would be concerned about that. If their performance is decreased, I'm going to be concerned about that. And so my goal is to help someone deal with stress, is to be able to kind of prioritize some situation or whatever their situations are. to set some realistic goals or some smart goals around those particular things, and to be able to let go of things that are outside of their control, which is kind of a hard thing to do. Sometimes our stress can come by way of negative thought processes or mind or a pessimistic outlook in life. And so I do work with some clients about, shifting the mindset, trying to find things to be grateful for, trying to identify different positive affirmations they can speak to themselves on a daily basis, as opposed to waking up and having these automatic negative thoughts. All right. So when we face prolonged or a constant threat, or even worse, a vague unknown threat or even perceived threat, instead of it being an advantage, staying in this state becomes a distinct disadvantage. That means our brain becomes affected by the flood of fear-triggered stress hormones. And so if your body is in a constant state, or you're constantly exposed to these stress hormones, what ends up happening, this becomes the new norm for that individual. They think this is the state that they're supposed to be in at all times. And I'll give you an example. So this past week, there was one day I committed to doing absolutely nothing. I had a massage on that day. And I told my husband, I spoke it out loud, that I am not going to do anything today. And he and I was relaxing, and I said, I'm going to lay down for a nap. And then suddenly I sat up and I said, I need to make a grocery list. And he said to me, he's like, lay down. Lay down. And he said it with such conviction. And I was like, laying down. And so I laid down and I slept for about 30 minutes, and I sat up and he was watching a movie, and I started watching the movie, and he was like, well, welcome back. And so I didn't realize how the busyness of life had become my new norm, to the point that I could not even rest, or I found difficulty in resting. And so that's what I want you to kind of be aware of, is what's going on around you. For me, it is running a business, having a full caseload. It is, taking care of family. It is academic work, is teaching class. All of those things tend to go on about 6 days a week for about 12 to 14 hours a day for me. And so while I am intentional about doing self-care, I have to also, while doing self-care, be intentional about not thinking about those things that I have to take care of outside of doing self-care. So I'm really trying to be intentional about staying in that moment when I'm doing self-care. But it's become quite of a challenge. And honestly, this kind of snuck up on me subtly. And so being aware of, if you're able to really take some time away from life and unplug, even if it's to decompress for 20, 30 minutes a day, try to help your body to adjust to not having to be involved with a lot of things all day.
Hey, Valerie, I love that idea. And we do that at the
Yeah.
house. We'll take
Yeah.
a day where we're not going to do anything. But I have to, I guess, prioritize my time, because then the next day I'm like, I just feel like I'm behind. And then I'm stressed. So I need to, right. Okay. That's
To-do list.
To-do list. Okay. All right. I'm gonna let you know.
I did not put that on my slide, but I'm very much like that. Like,
Yeah.
the next day, if I don't have anything written down, I would get really anxious about how much I have to do. But as long as I have my to-do list, I can go follow that step by step, because I've already prioritized my day. And that way, having that to-do list, set it aside, I can just really focus on self-care.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That was really good. All right, so here are some warning signs that you might be in danger of having some mental health disorders show up for you. And that is if you're noticing mood swings, irritability, angry outbursts, restlessness, difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite, binge eating, headaches, muscle tension, anxiety, difficulty in focusing. And so I'm going to take you back to that moment, have you to imagine, because I think we've all been in a situation where we had these close calls and an accident, right? But I want you to think about not only how you tense up, whether that's tightening your hand around the wheel, whether that is pressing ever so hard into the brake just to keep from hitting someone, whether that is to you stop breathing. Imagine that, because you do, right? Because you're in a very stressful moment. Now, I want you to imagine what it's like when you're out of that situation and you're back on the road, right? And you're relaxing all of these things that have tightening up, even your thighs, your glutes, those things tighten up. But once you're out of that threatening situation, you tend to relax and you breathe, right? And you might say a few choice words. I'm not sure how y'all do it, but but you're out of that moment. Now, what's so hard about, moments like that, like it is something that you can see, is something that you can imagine. But when you're worrying, like there's not a threatening situation present for you to avoid. So I think that's why we have to be really aware of our state of mind and our bodies, so that we can recognize when we're in situations where we could be exposed to these stress hormones over a long period of time. So some strategies for managing stress, and all of this is in addition to what I believe has helped me, and that's prayer, that's devotion and meditation. Prayer and devotion and meditation is going to help you to maintain a constant conversation with God about the direction of life. It's going to help you to memorize scripture, even if you're not into, where you can recall the whole scripture and you just comes, it comes to you paraphrase. That's really good as well. But because it's in those moments that you can recall the promises of God and, in what He wants for you in these moments of stress. I think about King David, Saul, even how they called out to God in these times where they were really distressed. Elijah called out to God, and he was just pleading with God to take his life. So, I call out to Him because I do believe He will answer according to Psalm 86. But in addition to that, you want to keep now, these like prayer, devotion, and meditation is helpful, but you also have to be actively involved with making sure that you are intentional about organizing your life to pursue after the peace that God desires for you. So keeping a daily routine, organizing your day. Lady Pam and I was just talking about it. You don't want to enter into a day where things seem so disorganized, or you don't know exactly where to start, because that does create a lot of anxiety and stress. You want to be able to connect with others. And I would say connect with people who pour into you, and you can pour into them. If there are people in your circle who seem to be draining you and just you kind of coming to take things and always leaning on you, depending on you, you might want to evaluate those type of relationships so that you can manage your stress and protect your peace. Eat healthy as best you can. Get as many fruits and vegetables, or I am particularly loving the Mediterranean diet that has a lot of vegetables and protein. That has worked really well for me because I do have some sensitivities to dairy product and bread. So find what works well for you. Get plenty of sleep. I cannot stress this one enough. Pay attention to your bedtime routine. If you are on your phone moments before you go to bed, there is a blue light exposure that can affect your sleep patterns. So trying to disconnect from your iPhone, your cell phones, at least a couple hours before your bedtime would be ideal. Do some, gentle stretches before bed that helps with sleep. Or if you are exercising, I'm not sure, the like the amount of hours. I know there's been some debate about whether to exercise before bed, but I've found that even with me exercising at least a couple of hours before bedtime, that helps me to sleep. So developing good sleep habits is very important. Exercising regularly can promote good sleep habits and reduce stress as well. Limit your time following the news. In these past years, there has been a lot of things occurring that just trigger the stress response and create anxiety, anger, fear, all of those things. Limit your exposure. I think I've mentioned before how these news outlets are on a loop. So you tuning in all day is just not necessary. A good 30 minutes, if that's what you have to do, a good 30 minutes on the news I think would be sufficient. Also, limit your social media use as well. This is something that I have found to be particularly helpful to me. I've taken a break for quite some time because you hear about different people's stories. Sometimes um, the news is or the posts that you see out there can trigger different feelings for you, and then before you know it, you're involved in a lot of people's lives. And for me, I'm already involved with people's lives most of the day. And so social media doesn't really work well for me to be engaged with a long period of time. So I've chosen to unplug a little bit. Decompress or take a nap for 20 to 30 minutes a day. And I mean, try to focus on doing nothing in these moments other than to breathe, to listen to some music, maybe to, let your family know. And my kids when they were growing up, they were very, very familiar with my routine. Like, hey, mommy is going to take 30 minutes. I'm going to spend some time by myself. Don't come knock on this door. Y'all can take care of yourself. You eat breakfast, go to your room, watch a show, read a book, whatever. They have their assignment. And so they were very familiar and very respectful of my time. So don't assume that your family always need you to be plugged in. It just could be you needing to communicate with them what you need in that time. So developing breathing and relaxation techniques. This is something I had to address with many of my massage clients. Many of us have, I think, taken for granted the breath that God has put in our body. Sometimes we're in the mode of breathing in shallow breaths and not recognize that. But if you ever gone through any training as for music or singing or anything of that nature, typically they have you to focus on your breathing and to do diaphragm breathing. And that is so important. If you're not in that, if you're not exposed to singing or having a voice coach, I tell people to go and watch an infant breathe, right? Infants retaught me how to breathe. So just watching a newborn baby breathe, you can see their stomachs rise and fall effortlessly. And that retaught me how to breathe because I absolutely love being around babies. And so pay attention to how they're breathing. We should be taking full breaths in and full breaths out. That reminds us of the relaxed state we should be in. So, yeah.
Hey, I just want to add on that breathing. I knew someone. She was Oriental. I think she believed in acupressure, whatever, and she would always
Mhm,
say, like breathe in for 4 seconds and breathe out
mhm,
for 8, or you can breathe in for 3 or out for
mhm,
6. But it
mhm.
goes along with the deep breathing, because
Yes,
we're always just kind of shallow breathing, and don't take the time to really just relax our bodies. And so I just wanted to,
right.
yeah, to add that too.
And that's so important because the responsibilities we have day to day, whether that is going to work or handling various tasks, that is that requires of us to put our energy into that, and we don't realize how our breaths change. And so just kind of coming back to our baseline and really focusing on breathing could be so important. Yeah, that is called box breathing, which she's talking about breathing 4 out 7 or 6, and then breathe in 4. All right. So I put one of my favorite scriptures on here. When I am in distress, I call to you because you answer me. I think I shared before that there was one day my husband, who I normally call if I'm in distress, or a close friend of mine, she was not available, and they decided not to be available on the same day at the same time. But they have their lives. They have their lives, and the people around you have their lives. So who do we call on? I think it's so important that, your initial response be to call on God and see what he has to say. And I remember just opening up the scripture, and I was like, through the Bible app, the scripture that was for that day, it spoke to my situation. And so I went to read the whole chapter. I was like, that's the word I needed. That is what I needed. So he's timely in that way. So that is my ultimate resource. And then I found a resource that can really help as well. And this resource does work you through breathing, addressing automatic negative thought processes. And so one of the techniques in here is grounding. And I really like that. That's where you're focusing on breathing and imagining being, stable in the present moment. And unhooking is something else. Like, you have situations that might come up in your life that will just pull you in, and you will have a reaction to it. Unhooking is saying, like, take a step back, look at that situation more realistically. And this is I provided the link here, and I'll send it to you as well, Lady Pam. But this was issued by the World Health Organization, and it's a bit of a manual, but it's animated, and it kind of talk you step by step. So taking a few pages a day may even be helpful. And there's my contact information if I can answer any questions around stress. It's kind of hard to capture all of what I would want to capture around stress management, mainly because there's even research out there how exposure to stress hormones can mutate genes and cause breast cancer. So I just had someone was telling me about a situation like that. They did not have their family, they had a parent who had breast cancer, but it was determined that they did not have the gene. And the doctor was having conversation with her about her stress level, and about how stress hormones can mutate genes. And so really, I think it's something worthy of do a deep dive research of your own and learn more about how to manage your stress, and really be intentional with that so that you can be well, live well, and peacefully.
Amen. Valerie, this was great as always. You never disappoint. When you started off and you were talking about Elijah and Saul, and I knew about Elijah, we've
Mhm.
heard messages, and then and Saul, but really, just especially when it comes to Saul, the long-term effects of, if you keep having stress to the point, they had to hire David to play soft music. Saul
Mhm.
out there trying to kill people. I mean, he's just going crazy. He's like a
Yes.
madman, and
Yes.
just how it just affected him mentally. But never thought about it in the aspect of mental health. And if we look at some of our lives, well, sometimes this overload of stress has caused things in our lives. If we just kind of step back and just kind of look at I don't know, our relationships with people, or just our physical, like you said, I didn't know that long-term stress can turn into sugar, which turns into fat, and it's just sitting up
Mhm.
in our bodies. And you're thinking, I'm on all these diet plans, and I'm doing this and doing that, but we haven't eliminated the stress factor.
Stress. Hmm. Hmm.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then even I'm thinking, and maybe this is a question you can answer. How can we, because you gave some great strategies, how can we, a lot of times we have unexpected stressors. So I'll
Hmm.
give myself, for example, one morning we were getting ready to have the prayer room call. So I go into the living room, like, why is all this water on the floor? Like, it's just puddles and puddles of water. And the hot water heater had busted, I guess, in the middle of the night. All this
Wow.
water is everywhere. And that was unexpected. And so me and my husband, we have this thing where I said, well, we wanted to get the carpet clean, because we try to find something positive. But how do
Right.
you handle those stressors of, you go into your car and it don't crank, and you're like
Yeah.
late for a meeting? I mean, how do people handle those
Yeah.
unexpected things?
I think that, and I've had some of those experiences too. And my ultimate concern is, how will other people be affected?
Yeah.
That is my ultimate concern. Um, However, there are going to be those times where you just might have to cancel a meeting, or just not show up, and you have to be okay with that. But I realize that some people may not be okay with that, because the thoughts go into, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm not reliable? So then it turns in an attack on you, when it's not that. Life happens, and we're not going to be able to show up in some ways that we really want to. I think the intentions there is good, but sometimes life will show up and throw things at us, and we're not able to follow through with those things. And then other moments, if possible, if you could, call someone. Like if it's a car situation, if you have to create I think staying solution focused is one thing for me. Like, solution focus help pulls me out of those stressful moments. Like if I have to reorganize something, because life has thrown something at me, I get into a space where it's like, okay, what do I need to move around? What do I need to take off my plate? Um, and be okay with that.
Yeah. No, that's good. Just creating first of all, and you talked about shifting your mindset, and then
Hmm.
creating a solution. Okay, this is
Hmm.
happening. So what are we going to do? You got to come up
Right.
with a, so that's
Yeah.
good. A lot of these things,
And
go ahead.
I think what I can appreciate about what you and Pastor Mason did is that you found something positive in that situation. Um, and that is you integrating that experience in your life. It's happened. Sometimes people resist those moments. I can't believe this is happening to me.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
So I think that's another thing, is just, you know, finding ways to just embrace that moment, because it's happening. It's not going to change really. But resisting it, saying this should not be happening, or trying to avoid that situation, only going to make it worse.
yeah. And I think, also what I get from what you're saying is, and I'm thinking in terms of being a parent,
Hmm.
making sure that I'm not creating stress on my children,
Hmm.
and I know there's some parents, say, and the child may or may not be asking for it, but they're just in so many activities, and they got school, and they got all these activities just year round. And when does that child have just time to just kind of rest and just,
Hmm.
parents, it's okay if your child watches TV or just kind of, just sit around not
Hmm.
doing anything, you know,
Hmm.
uh, even though we're like, you're not doing anything, you should be cleaning your room, you should be doing this, but I have to make sure I'm not creating stress on my children or people around me.
Absolutely. I think one of my sons actually was involved with football from since he was 7 all the way up through high school, and we were always traveling. But when we moved to Arizona, we just like, you take the year off, take the year off, get adjusted to the heat, and it's okay. Sometimes we think our kids have to be involved with a lot of things all the time. It's okay for them to have moments where they can just take a break, and even implementing that a part of your day to day. Like when you choose to, take 20, 30 minutes to decompress, get them in the mode of relaxing during that time as well. Make it a part of their daily habit to do that so that they know what a relaxed state feels like. And I come from the household where it's like, if you should be doing something with your time, you should be productive. That was the message. And when I wasn't doing anything, even as an adult, when I was doing nothing, I would feel guilty about doing nothing.
Right.
So really normalizing that it's okay to take this time to be still and to rest.
Yeah. And I think we're conditioned like that. If we're sitting down, we
Mhm.
think, I'm supposed to be doing something. There's something I'm supposed to be doing. And our mind just can't fully rest,
Yeah,
because we're focused on the next thing or what we should be doing. And at that moment, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're resting.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this was good. There was another thing. I ran into, there was someone that we go see. She's a physical therapist, and
Hmm.
she has I forgot what she is in, but she's majored in something. But anyway, she told me that counting, if you're laying in bed at night and if you're counting, maybe you know about this, that you can't count and worry at the same time. So if you just kind of
Hmm.
just start counting, I said, oh, that's where they get counting sheep from. I said, I never made the correlation,
Yeah.
but that's something to do kind of at night, as you're,
Hmm.
music. Have you heard of anything like that, or?
Well, I have. It doesn't work for me.
Okay.
So I I pray, and I find that as I'm praying, I start drifting back off to sleep.
Drifting off to sleep. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So that has, but it's, counting, doing some relaxation. I also like to use, and I think I've mentioned this before, the Calm app. It has different nature sounds on there. It has uh, guided meditation on there where it's helping you to focus your breathing, like what you were talking about, the box breathing, breathe in 4, out 7, and back in 4. That's on the Calm app. So really, and also the Insight Timer app. Those are two apps that I really like that really helps you to focus on relaxation.
Yeah. Um, and I think this is my last thing I'm gonna say, and a question I have to ask. So you talked a lot, about strategies for managing stress,
Mhm.
and I was sitting there thinking, because a lot of times when a person is stressed, there's two ways they can respond. They can either, do these wonderful strategies, and then some people, they go to the negative, they cope negatively. Can you just kind of talk to our audience about the ramifications and maybe some things you have seen that people have done that's something negative that they have done in response to stress?
Yeah, so you're right. And I often do point out the direction either, you can react or respond to the situation. Reacting uh, involves more of your emotions, and you're allowing those emotions to drive that that situation or how you view that situation. Whereas responding is you're looking at that situation and you're kind of doing some self check-in with yourself. What is it about this situation that's not working for me? How am I feeling about it? Is there anything for me to do? If you determine that there is nothing for you to do, it's about moving towards letting go of that situation that you might not have control over. But the ramifications of uh, going in this way of reacting can create this behavioral pattern in you where it sounds like you might be complaining all the time, or you have this pessimistic outlook, and you can't find hope in anything. And then ultimately these things that you're telling yourself begin to affect your mood. I was talking about earlier how you begin, if your thought about not being able to show up for a meeting is, you're concerned about how others might be, others might perceive you. And then that attack becomes, you start to attack yourself, like, how will they perceive me? They're going to think I'm unreliable, so on and so on. Well, when you're in that mindset, think about how that affects your mood when you're talking that way to yourself. It brings your mood down. And so the opposite could be more effective is I'm saying, well, I really intended to show up at that meeting. It's unfortunate that I can't make it. But I do know that, my work ethic has always been strong, like reminding yourself of who you are as a person, then focusing on the things that you are not in that moment, using that moment to define your character. Like, stop using those moments to define your character.
That's good.
Because if you were to evaluate your life in whole, you might find that you do really well at your work.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but we don't remind ourselves of that.
Yeah, you're right. It goes back to that self-talking, just talking to yourself.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned just really speaking positive of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
good. That's so important. I
Yeah.
like that. React or respond. Which one are
Mm-hmm.
you gonna do? That's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, everyone, I have left Valerie's information up there, so y'all can please make sure you write it down. Send her an email. She's got an email information up there, website information, office information. As you can see, this has just been one universal social media just session on today. So I know this was very helpful to all of our listeners, all of our viewers. Thank you so much, Valerie. I'm going to remind people just of a few announcements that we have coming up. And then, Valerie, I want you to, of course, give us some takeaways as far as what we need to do pertaining to stress. Don't forget, guys, tomorrow is our small group. We are experiencing God in a whole new way, learning the will of God and knowing the will of God is what we've been talking about for the past, I think, 11 weeks. And so if you want to join it, it is totally fine. It's awesome. Send us an email at ladypam@tcowi.org so that you can get plugged in. I can send you the Zoom information. Sunday, we are spring cleaning. Pastor Mason is continuing the series on spring cleaning, and we are learning there are some things we need to get rid of our lives. Just like we need to get rid of things in our homes, we need to get rid of some things in our lives, in our minds. And so listen, you don't want to miss this Sunday as we continue to get rid of some of those things. Our prayer room call, of course, is every Monday and Wednesday and Friday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so please join us for that. Of course, we have a study in the scriptures every Tuesday at 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join us for that as well. A lot of great things going on at BBC. Don't forget our spiritual renewal retreat, which is going to be June 23rd through 25th. Change of venue is going to be at C.W. Hayes School. Also, the cost is $100 per person, $100 per person. And so you can't beat that. It's 5 great sessions, includes your meals, includes your snacks. And so we're going to have a great time that weekend. Go to our website to register at bhambc.org. So that's all I have for our announcements. Valerie, thank you so much for joining us here on today. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Social media, make sure you share this information with someone. Make sure you go back and watch it. Some of you couldn't watch it at 12 noon. So listen, and so go back and watch it when you get off. Watch it as you're driving home from work. That's when you need it. All these road ragers and stuff, and
I
people
know.
in a hurry. They're in a hurry nowadays. I'm like, what's the big hurry? So listen, I go back and do that. Miss Valerie, anything you want to leave with our viewers?
Yeah. If I had to sum up today, is be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
As much as you extend grace to others when life is thrown at someone else, as much grace that you extend to them, as much kindness as that you extend to them, be willing to extend that to yourself. I want you to maybe even evaluate the community that you're, or a group of people that you're keeping company with, because it may be that you need to make some changes to protect your peace, to manage your stress. You don't have to be involved in everyone's life. I hear that so vividly, that maybe we have our hands in a lot of things and is causing us to be super busy and unable to take care of ourselves as needed. And then I think finally, I would say, look for, in your stressful situations, look for what God is trying to show you. I have often found like these nuggets of wisdom that God is trying to show me in certain situations, when I was in a space to just resist it. Like, I don't have time for this right now, Lord. But in that, because it's not going anywhere, take a moment, take a close look at it, and find that nugget of wisdom that can help you to grow in your character or to move more freely in life.
That's awesome. You're right. And a lot of times I will say that, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me?
Mhm,
Because it's a lesson. There's a lesson in there somewhere
mhm.
also. Great. Thank you so much for those wonderful takeaways and just this wonderful presentation overall. Of course, listen, everybody, make sure you reach out to Valerie if you need something more detailed, something more in depth. You want a one-on-one session, please make sure you reach out to her and her lovely staff. That's all we have for today. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Be blessed, be safe. And until next time, we'll see y'all guys next Wednesday. Thank you,
Take
Valerie.
care, guys. Yes, you're welcome. Bye-bye.